My name is Michael Levin, and I'm the chairman of the board of Titan Steel Corporation. Everyone takes for granted the steel that's used in our lives. The steel industry is actually less well understood than you might think, given that steel goes into cars, steel goes into washing machines, into air conditioning and heating, into big pipes and tubes to move fluids like oil and gas. So steel is used throughout our economy, throughout our country, and throughout our lives, and yet it's poorly understood. 1959 in the United States, there was a monumental strike between the United Steelworkers and the steel producing companies. The strike went on unsettled for over 100 days, with almost 600,000 workers on the picket lines. And the idea of importing steel became a real possibility. From that day forward, the steel industry in the United States has been global, and the domestic industry has had to ask Washington to be involved in some type of protection. The steel industry in the 70s employed about 600,000 steel workers. In today's domestic US economy, there are probably 60,000 workers in the steel industry. But there are also probably 7 million people working in the United States in industries like manufacturing mobile homes, making pressure vessels, making heating and ventilation ducts. 6 or 7 million workers are involved in the bending of metal. So, to the extent that a program, government policy is instituted to protect companies making steel in the United States, ultimately that affects 50 or 60,000 steelworker jobs, maybe saving them, but puts in jeopardy 7 million jobs. Steel and coal and trade are important issues to the Trump administration. Any problem can be reduced to a simple solution, but that solution is usually wrong. People's common perception that just blocking China from the United States will create more jobs in steel is false. It will not. As a result of the tariffs that have been put into place, steel prices have gone up so dramatically in the United States. There are no steel industries announcing that as a result of tariffs and as a result of their higher prices, that vast new capital investment is going into the US domestic steel industry. It is not happening. There is no way that the United States can be self-sufficient in steel. The United States is currently consuming about 110 million tons of steel a year and importing between 25 and 30 million tons of steel a year. If that 25 or 30 million tons of steel a year were to be cut out, there wouldn't be sufficient steel to produce the products that we currently make in the United States, which would be a disaster. If it becomes impossible to import light gauge steel, and if there's no domestic alternative source, then what will happen is those containers will be made elsewhere. And it's impractical to ship empty containers. So what will happen is not only will the people who made those containers in the United States lose that business, but the people who filled those containers with oil or chemicals or foodstuff will find that those products are put into those cans overseas and put on the shelf at Walmart, and consumers will buy them. So jobs will be lost in the steel industry, but also jobs will be lost in the food packaging business. That's what's being lost here. And so Walmart will not go out of business. Walmart will find another source for those products. The United States steel industry will never regain the level of employment that it had in its heyday. In the same fashion that the coal industry of the United States, that's now being protected by the Trump administration, will not regain that kind of employment. Employment in manufacturing is being reduced around the world. So these industries are shedding workers and will continue to shed workers. So to try to save manufacturing and save jobs while looking in the rearview mirror at the way manufacturing worked is bound to fail. Innovation occurs at the edges of a technology. If 20 or 30 years ago General Motors had spent a lot of time on electric cars, probably would not have been well received by the board of directors or the shareholders. Today, paying attention to electric cars is crucial for their survival. We are at the point where some of the e-commerce suppliers are talking about drone delivery within an hour or two. Mass-produced customization. This is probably the future of manufacturing. But think about what that means for employment. There won't be the same type of factories with the dense workforces that there were in the past. We're faced with thinking through what manufacturing will look in the future, where the jobs of the future will be. That's where our real thought should be.